but I had fun with my training. It was just my type of life. In the forest, it's more important to really do the trainings in relevant forests. In sprint, it's maybe even more important to look at street view.
What's your favorite meal before the competition?
That's an easy question. I would say it's about 6 to 8 training camps with the national team.
So what I caught from that is that you don't like intervals.
Exactly.
Me personally, the more demanding the terrain, the more I enjoy it.
Exactly. Same here. Just sprint would be a bit too boring for me.
Where you're actually writing your own training plan.
Yeah, I have that one thing I want to reach since I'm a little girl, and that's world champion title.
So we've said that on this channel we are going to be all about education and also a little bit of entertainment. I strongly feel that in the chat that we are about to have with Simona Aebersold, we actually have both. And even though there is a theme to our talk, we don't let it stop us from talking about other things, like her favorite meal, for example, her goals and dreams, her idea for herself after the career of the pro athletes, and other things that I'm sure will be very interesting to you. I think personally that this chat was a blast and it's really interesting, and all of you should definitely watch it. So please enjoy Simona Aebersold.
So hello everybody. Today we are meeting with Simona Aebersold, very famous runner nowadays already, both from her junior career and from her senior career. Lots of medals from the competitions on the world class level. And the topic of our today's conversation is going to be about how the life of an athlete who had to work probably really hard to achieve the goals and all the places during the world-class competitions, how the life of such a person is different from an orienteer who does this sport just as a leisure activity, or maybe doesn't focus fully on orienteering, but has other matters to attend to, like most of us probably. So welcome, Simona.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So do you consider yourself as a pro athlete, as an orienteer who does this thing for a living?
Yes, I would say so. I'm still signed in at the university for some courses, but yeah, I basically didn't do anything the last 2 years. So the last exam I did was in 2020. And since then I tried several times to study something. And then there were training camps and there were competitions during the exams. So yeah, I kind of just left it out and thought I would do it whenever it fits my program. And that hasn't been the case yet. But I will try to start studying again this autumn with some few courses. So it's going to be interesting.
All right. Yeah, we will dig into that a little bit deeper later. So if you are a professional athlete, you probably have a life where you had to make some sacrifices to get to the level of what you currently represent, and to get to the place where you are able to compete with the very best in your class in orienteering. So what do you feel you had to sacrifice? What is something that normally you feel that you would be doing right now, but you're not?
I don't really know. I wouldn't say I sacrifice anything, because I really love my sport. I love what I'm doing. And I love being with the people I am at the moment. And I spend lots of time with the whole national team. And that's basically, my whole friend group, where I have the opportunity to spend so much time with them. And then, I don't know, maybe earlier on, probably in high school, there I was always busy with training when the others did something really fun. And but I had fun with my training. I don't know, I wouldn't say that I sacrificed anything. It was just my type of life. And
right. So maybe you've missed on something, but you don't take it as a sacrifice.
Exactly.
Right, because instead you got to do many other awesome things as well.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that sounds fair. Absolutely. So what does your training regime looks like nowadays? How much time do you spend on preparing for your competitions?
I would say it's about 10 to 12 hours weekly that I train physically. Then there's of course the preparations that I do on the computer, like looking at maps or analyzing the terrains. Yeah, there's usually about 3 to 4 or 5 interval sessions a week where I try to really find what I need in the terrain for my big goals, and then kind of try to do the same in the training, so relevant training for my goals.
So these sessions that you've mentioned, 4 or 5 sessions, are these orienteering sessions? Probably.
No, it's basically, or usually in normal weeks, then it's just physical training, like physical intervals. But some of them are in the forest, of course, in the terrain, like terrain loops, that I try to find the best loops relevant for the terrain I want to compete in.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah, and also for the runs, the normal easy runs, they also try to find as relevant terrain as possible, or as possible from where I am at the moment. So yeah, sometimes it's quite hard to find some relevant terrain.
Is it just running, or do you also weave in some other kinds of activities like biking, swimming, anything else?
Yeah, there's also biking and less swimming. There's more aqua jogging when I'm injured, but yeah, I hope I won't be injured next year. So
yeah, everybody hopes for that.
Yeah, this year was a bit a long time injury with some COVID in January, and then I got some problems with my calves because of COVID. Yeah, and that just didn't go away until some weeks before WOOC. So there was lots of aqua jogging, more than usual. Also lots of biking, of course, but I also tried to get some biking sessions in normal weeks.
Okay, like so biking is kind of like a regular thing for you.
Yeah, but more road biking.
Right.
So normal mountain biking is less of a thing for me.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Yeah, you've mentioned both, right? So I'm thinking part of the preparation for, part of the training really is something that you call physical training, right? And that's about 10 hours per week, maybe a tiny bit more. But then you also mentioned that you're doing other preparations for the competition, like learning how the map is written or drawn, learning how the terrain specification, maybe trying out different route choices and testing them, and learning how to pick the right route choice in the right terrain. So how much time do you spend on that?
It's hard to say, but yeah, usually my technical training is on training camps, and maybe one orienteering training a week where I do that in the forest. But I would say there's also a lot of preparations, maybe just right before the competitions, the important competitions like Street View or this year's WOOC. There was a lot of mapping because there hadn't been any map. So we tried to draw the whole map of Weile and also Fredericia. So yeah, that took a lot of time. There was probably 30 hours of mapping in the 2 weeks before the competition. And also lots of like looking at route choices and looking at the route choices first on the map and then also on Street View to see the passages. But I think I noticed that there was a lot more of that preparation for sprint championships than for forest championships. Because in Estonia, for example, we couldn't do anything.
Right. I think sprints are more absorbing in that area, right? Because knowing the terrain in the sprint area is so much more important than knowing the forest. I mean, maybe not important, but it takes more time to get to know the terrain, right? Because in the forest, you just kind of get to know the characteristics of the terrain. You, of course, visited a couple of times, so you get the feeling of the terrain as well, but you can't really prepare or to the specific legs, for example, because there are so many possibilities. In a sprint area, it's a little bit more limited, and also it makes sense to check, as you said, those narrow passages, for example. Can you go through it? Can you not? Of course, you shouldn't fix your mind on that, because it can also always be barred by the organizers. That happens, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's always good to be prepared.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think also on the other hand, in the forest, it's more important to really do the trainings in relevant forests. And in sprint, it's maybe even more important to look at street view, or for me at least.
Cool. Yeah. All right. A little question from the other side, from the other angle. What's your favorite meal before the competition?
That's an easy question. It's definitely porridge.
Porridge.
As my stomach is not that good in digesting stuff. So before races, I like to have something that's good for my stomach and that I can digest really quickly. So yeah, it's porridge with some raisins and some honey.
Awesome. It's my favorite one as well.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it is. All right, moving on. How many days per year do you spend outside of your home, outside of your house, during the training camps, during the competition? Did you have a chance to count it?
I think I rather have a chance to count the days that I'm at home. So this year it's been about 7 weeks until now, and 5 of them were during during winter. So it's been a lot in different countries, mostly Denmark in springtime and Gothenburg, and then a lot of time in Oslo during winter time, skiing and doing nice runs on the treadmill. And then also lots of training camps, of course, in Spain, where I was 2 weeks in January, February. So yeah, it's mostly abroad, and mostly in Gothenburg, I would say.
Right. So you're a guest at the house.
Exactly.
Why Oslo? Why did you go there?
Kasper lives in Gothenburg and comes from Oslo, so his parents live in Oslo.
I see.
So I spent a lot of time there visiting his parents. Yeah, for me, it's really special there because you can ski from home, basically. So it's a lot better than skiing from here, where you always have to take the car to the closest ski resorts. And cross-country skiing in Holmenkollen is really nice.
Have you always been doing a lot of cross-country skiing?
Actually not, or every winter a bit, but not that much. Weeks with the family, holiday weeks in the mountains, for example, Engadin, or different places in Switzerland, where we went skiing for 1 week each winter. But otherwise, no, when I'm at home, then the closest ski resort is about 20 minutes from here, so it wouldn't be that far. But it's been a long time, or it was a long time, took a long time until I had my driver's license, so I was not able to go there on my own. Now I'm able to go there on my own, so it's a bit more often, but yeah, it's always like taking the car and driving there, and I don't really like driving car alone. So if I drive a car, then it has to be full. Same with taking the plane. I also really don't like taking the plane, so I rather take the trains. So that also takes a bit longer time.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. But at the same time, when you're going to Oslo, for example, to train over there, it's probably hard to do any map training during winter, of course.
Yeah, during winter, it's really hard. I think I didn't do any last winter when I was there for some weeks. And also the runs were really hard to do. First, I did the normal runs on roads and grass and everything there, where there was no ice or less ice and less snow. But yeah, after some trainings, I got some problems with my knee because I was always slipping with every step I took. So I changed to the treadmill, and that's basically the only thing you can do there during winter skiing or running on a treadmill and summer maybe on
But I
foot.
think that cross-country skiing is a pretty good replacement for running during winter period, right? You can, I mean, you need to have a pretty good technique so that you're able to run for, well, let's say 15, 20, maybe more kilometers. And then you can really prepare your body for this longer periods of physical demanding activity. So I think it's pretty good. All right. So you said you're spending a lot of days away from home. How many training camps do you have during the year?
Ooh, it's hard to say.
Most
of them are individual training camps, I think. So yeah, the national team, we had one this spring in Denmark, and then there's usually one winter training camp in Southern Europe. And there's different training camps, like before the important competitions, we always have a preparation camp right before the competition. So there was the EO camp and the WOOC camp, and yeah, there's some more camps in Engadin now. So yeah, I would say it's about 6 to 8 training camps with the national team.
Yeah, and each is probably about 1 week, 2 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, the winter training camp used to be 2 weeks. Now they shorten it a bit.
And if you're preparing for a certain type of terrain, right? Let's say you're preparing for walk. How many times do you visit a terrain before you feel comfortable there?
It's hard to say. Estonia didn't really need that much time, I think.
Yeah,
or I would have needed more time, of course. But there, nearly 3 weeks I spent there were almost enough to feel really comfortable in the terrain. But yeah, for WOOC next year, it will be a lot more, even though I've already been in that terrain for like hundreds of times. So yeah, anyways, I'm spending a lot of time there. I was there last week for some days, and we'll go there for probably a whole fall.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is amazing, really, how important it is to train in a relevant terrain so that you can really understand it, right? Like, for example, this summer we've been on our club training camp in Sweden. We went to Oringen, and we did some trainings around the Oringen as well. And I haven't been to Sweden in, I don't know, 4 years maybe. So despite the fact that I love this terrain and I always take the opportunity to visit when I can, well, we had some COVID, so traveling was a little bit restricted. I have other matters to attend to. So like Sweden didn't come up, right? And we went to Sweden for Oringen, and I was coming from pretty challenging terrain as well, because I was coming from Portugal, where we were training for jaywalk near Aguar de Beira. So the terrains over there are pretty challenging. I think that the difference between Scandinavian terrains, of course, it exists, and it's definitely visible, but both of them are pretty challenging. But so I felt that, okay, I'm coming from a pretty challenging terrain, so maybe I will feel pretty comfortable running in Sweden. No, I didn't, right? But at the same time, I felt that after each day, every run was better, and I could see more in the terrain. I could identify more objects from the map. And match it to the terrain, and it was becoming easier and easier with every passing day. So
yeah, exactly.
That was an amazing feeling.
I think that's what makes our sport so amazing, to like be able to adapt to new terrains that fast.
Yeah,
it's really fun to go to new terrains and learn how to orienteer there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, me personally, the more demanding the terrain, the more I enjoy it.
Exactly, same here.
All right. So the next one, are you studying? But I know you already mentioned it, and you said that you're attending a few courses, and you tried studying and connected with professional life of an athlete, and it didn't really work out. But you've also mentioned that you're planning to go back to your studies during fall this year.
Exactly. Yeah, the plan is to attend at least some courses, but probably not at the university itself, but rather from wherever I am. So I chose 2 subjects that are possible to study from wherever I am. So it's educational science and psychology, and minor subjects. And yeah, the major subject was sports science, and that one I'm already done with almost. So there's only the bachelor thesis left and some apprenticeship, but otherwise I'm done with it, and there's only the minor subjects left to study.
Okay, so that's not bad. You were able to finish something almost, right?
Exactly, until 2020, and then it was over.
Right. How did COVID change the way you're able to study? Because in Poland and probably in many other countries, probably students were pushed to online studying for a time being, at least. But I also kind of suspect, I'm not sure about this, that's why I'm asking, but I kind of suspect that there are now more opportunities to actually attend online studies than there were before the COVID. That's what happened with work, right? Some people went to home office and they stayed there. They never came back to the office. I suspect that the same thing could happen at the universities.
Yeah, and I really enjoy it. I mean, for me, it's perfect.
Yeah.
We have lots of more subjects that are really online and only, or you can go to the university and attend the courses there. But yeah, for me, it's more comfortable to do it either from home or from training camps or wherever I am. So yeah, that is perfect. That is something that is really positive about COVID.
Yeah, I think so too. I also am surprised that you mentioned psychology, because I get the feeling that it is a quite popular subject among orienteers. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe because orienteering
I know that
is...
Andrina Benjaminsen is studying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise I don't really...
Yeah, I don't know. I've been asking people very often what they are going to study after they leave their junior class, and many of them consider or even go to psychology.
Okay.
So I don't know, maybe it's because orienteering is very mentally demanding sport.
Yeah,
and it's
I think it's really important to be mentally strong. And I learned also a lot in sports psychology, which was part of the sports science studies for orienteering. So yeah, I think it's a really good choice to study psychology.
I think so too. All right, so continuing on that, what do you want to do when your orienteering career is over? Do you think about it? Or is it too early for you nowadays?
I haven't really thought about it, like what exactly I'm doing after it. I chose my studies because I want something that I'm interested in and that I can do after the career is over. So I think I would go to sports science and running analysis on a treadmill. That would be really cool to do. But also being a coach, I would be really interested in that. So let's see. But I don't have any plans yet.
Yeah, cool. I don't blame you at all, because you're quite early in your career. So yeah, you're absolutely entitled to focus on what you're doing right now and do not worry about the future too much just yet. How do you motivate yourself to push harder when you're low on your eagerness to do the training? Do you have these low energy moments during the year?
Yeah, I mean, it happens quite often that you're not motivated for training, that you get up in the morning and then, oh, I have to do intervals today. So yeah, I just try to focus on my goals and to see what I'm doing it for. And then it's a lot easier to run fast in intervals and to kind of just get the training done. And then after the training, I know that the feeling is great and that you can analyze what you've done. And yeah, I think it's a good way to motivate yourself to have big goals and to like just look forward to when it's done.
Right. So what I caught from that is that you don't like intervals.
Exactly. Or I used to not like them.
Okay.
Nowadays it's a bit better. But during Corona, it was horrible to do intervals alone. I always ran intervals together with the team and together with some group at university. So that was quite easy to do, and I knew that I had to do it and I had to run fast, and I had the group that was pushing me to run a bit harder. But yeah, when Corona came, I suddenly had to do all the trainings on my own. Also the easy runs, which were getting quite boring alone. And yeah, the intervals, it was just really hard in the beginning to push hard enough and to like yeah, just get the training done. And I was really not motivated to do those trainings. But yeah, I learned how to deal with it. And nowadays I almost like intervals. So it depends a bit on the type of interval. If it's in the forest and like some terrain loops, then I'm really looking forward to it. And then I like pushing like through the forest, fighting against the bushes, the thorns in our home forest. So yeah, I think it's also some good thing that I changed my training a bit into more like different kind of intervals, not just 2 intervals a week where I basically do the same thing, but where I vary a lot between terrain intervals or intervals on the road, or like for sprint there were intervals around lots of corners in the city. So yeah, I think that helps me a lot and makes me motivated even more.
Yeah, but you also mentioned something interesting, that training in a group is easier, right? I think it's not the same for everybody. I think not everybody has problem with training alone. I know a few people that feel very comfortable going for the training just by themselves. I'm not one of them. So I always prefer to run in a group as well. I kind of, yeah, if I have to go for the training just by myself, I feel like, it's going to be boring, right? And if I go with the group, I can always talk with people even before the run. I mean, if the run is harder and you're not really comfortable talking while running, then you can always talk before and after or during some breaks. So it's always a little bit more fun than just doing it by yourself. And you have that
guy that's suffering as well,
yeah,
besides you. So it's kind of a different thing if you're suffering alone.
Yeah,
but yeah,
exactly.
I think it helps a lot to have the variation in training. So I think since Corona, I basically do all my trainings alone, and I learned how to like it and to like it even more because I can do whatever I want to, and to like focus on my goals and not. When I was running in a group, it was always like the intervals were not really the intervals I would have done. It was more like the intervals the group did, and I would have probably done some other intervals to have more relevant intervals for my goals and for the terrain I was training for.
Sure. One more thing that I want to touch from this topic is that something very important, I think. You've mentioned that the thing that motivates you is that you, when you don't have the will to go for the training, you always come back to your goals and you think, okay, I'm doing it for a purpose and my purpose is right here. And if I don't do it, I will not even, I will get away from the purpose, not even thinking that I will stay in place, right? So how do you set your goals? Do you have like a routine for planning your goals? Do you do it every year, for example? Or do you just, have something in mind and you don't really write it down anywhere? It's just in your head.
Yeah, I have that one thing I want to reach since I'm a little girl, and that's world champion title. And that's basically been the thing that has motivated me since I'm a little girl. So all the trainings I've done are like for that one goal, to become a world champion. And I've been that close for several times now. So I'm working at that last thing to get as close as possible and win that gold medal at World Champs.
All right. I'm pretty sure you're able to get there. But I understand that this is such a long-lasting goal that you don't even have to write it down. It's just in your head since you were small.
But yeah, of course, there's goals for every season. So I'm writing down the goals for every season, and probably November the last year or December, where I'm planning my whole season.
All right.
Those are the smaller goals, the ones on the way to that gold medal.
Okay. All right. So I would love to dig into that, but I think we don't have the time to do it today because we will probably start talking for 20 or 30 minutes about just this single topic. That's fine. Do you work with the psychologist? because as we already mentioned, like mental preparation, mental health is very important for for an orienteer. So do you feel that you're strong enough that you don't have to, or did you maybe have some opportunities to work with the psychologist before?
Yeah, I felt quite comfortable with not having a psychologist until I had that injury in February, which made me not training well. And I just struggled with doing those trainings that were good for my speed, and I noticed that I just didn't have the speed I should have at the selection races, first in April, and then the speed just didn't come again. And there was World Cup in Borås coming, and then I got also sick right before World Cup, and it was pretty shitty preparation, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. And their sports psychologist really helped me to deal with my thoughts and to prepare well, even though the preparations hadn't really gone well. And also for WOC, it was really important for me to have that sports psychologist to talk with right before the competitions, because it was totally different situation than the years before. The years before, I always knew if I run well, then it's good. Then I'm happy with the result. And this year it was like, if I run well, then I don't know. There's anything that could happen if I run well. Either my speed is not good enough, and then I'm just somewhere back in the result list, and really disappointed, of course, after the race. So I tried to talk to the sports psychologist and try to understand what's going on in my head, and that really helped me. And then suddenly the shape also came back right some days before WOC. So that helped me a lot. Maybe it was just a mental thing, but this is really important, and I will work together with the sports psychologist more in the future as well.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Do you have the sports psychologist as part of your national team?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. There's one sports psychologist which has worked with us the past years, and she's always there at WOC and also European champs every year. So just the major events, but there you're always able to talk to her, and she helps you wherever you need help.
Yeah, I think it's very useful, especially if you have those harder races or something during your preparations didn't go well. Yeah. So great to hear that professional athletes are using it as well. Do you also schedule sessions with other specialists? Like I assume you're visiting physiotherapists, maybe masseurs from time to time. Anyone else?
No, I think it's just the physio that I visit. Usually it's maybe once a month, but when I'm injured, of course, a bit more.
Yeah, sure.
Schedule it maybe twice a week. So this spring it has been a lot of physio until now, actually. So that's one thing that's really important, to either prevent injuries or to treat injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's your coach? Who's coaching you?
It's Roland Schütz. He's my physical coach, and he basically helps me with all the physical stuff, like interval trainings and normal runs and maybe running competitions. He really likes me to do cross-country races. So but basically it's myself that's writing the plan. Then he has a look on it and reports me back if I should do something else or something a bit differently, or if I should go to that race or this race. Or
That's a very interesting approach. I like it. I like it because very often the coach writes the plan and the runner just follows the plan, sometimes blindly. I'm not really a huge fan of that. I think that you should always understand the plan and be aware of what session is supposed to do. and what's the purpose of each session? Because if something happens during the session, you feel bad, maybe low energy, maybe your legs are just heavy, right? You need to know whether you should stop or you should keep pushing, depending on what the session is for, right? So I really like, I never met with that, but I really like the attitude where you're actually writing your own training plan. I think it's pretty cool, especially for the person that doesn't stay at one place all the time, because then you can easily adjust to all the traveling, all the different places that you're visiting, and make the plan work with that. And then someone just looks at the plan as a second person and gives his opinion in this case and make some adjustments if necessary. Nice.
Yeah, it's always been my own, on my own, doing the training plans. So I've never had anyone that wrote the training plan for me. And I like that kind of approach because I could do whatever I wanted to. That was maybe a bit on the edge sometimes, but yeah, basically it was just a lot of freedom, and I was really forced to understand my body and to know what's good for me and for my training and to get better. So
and probably also learn some theory, right, around how to build training plans,
and also combine with sports science studies.
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting.
Awesome
to apply it.
What is your favorite terrain for doing orienteering? Where do you enjoy running the most? Actually, before you answer that, are you more of a forest person or a sprint or city racing?
Also easy. Definitely forest.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I like the mix of both, but just sprint would be a bit too boring for me. Or I noticed that during last spring, where I just focused on sprint, that it's just running on hard surface, and sprint is like always a bit the same. And in the forest you have more that mix of different terrains and yeah, the nature that I really like.
Yeah. So what's your favorite forest terrain?
It's some really challenging one, I'd say. Preferably no paths. So I'd say it's more like Scandinavian terrain. Some terrain where the visibility is not that good, the runnability not either, but yeah, just really technical, and you have to navigate from hill to hill or depression to depression and so on. But I also really like mountain terrains, for example, Ræland in Norway, where JWalk 2015 was, where it's just marshes all the way, and it's really beautiful to run there. And also Swiss terrain, of course, in the mountains, where JWalk 16 was. There I also really like orienteering, because it's just beautiful to run there. But yeah, of course, I like the technical ones as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. We were so lucky with those JWalks back then. I mean, if you probably heard what happened, but if not for the forest access ban, probably the one this year in Portugal would have been pretty good as well.
Exactly.
Really, but it's coming. It's coming in November, so everybody will still get the chance to compete in this wonderful forest terrain.
Luckily.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Do you have any special equipment that you use for training purposes, maybe for some regeneration after the training, or maybe just for doing orienteering? Probably not for orienteering. We would have spotted it.
I think it's probably mostly measuring lactate after intervals or during intervals. Otherwise, there was not really anything that came to my mind that I use that is special or that others don't use or that you usually don't use.
So you're not an equipment geek. You don't use anything fancy.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay. How do you finance all the preparation and training camp costs? And well, going to the competition, I assume that it's mostly financed with the federation from Switzerland, Orienteering Federation. But how do you finance everything else?
Exactly. Yeah, it's the sponsors that helped me a lot with like training camps or also trips to every possible place. So yeah, I get a lot from them that I can use, and that's really the thing that makes it all possible. I think without my sponsors, it would be all on my parents, and yeah, that would have maybe been possible until some point in my career, but I really want to be on my own and finance my own things. So I really appreciate having all those sponsors that support me, and also the fan club that helps us a lot or me and my brother, to finance our training camps. And there's lots of supporters as well, besides the fan club. So there's many people behind all that and all my training and preparations for the important competitions.
Awesome. It's really great to hear this. I know that you as a country, as Switzerland, you also have the opportunity to run as part of the army, right? You can go
Exactly.
to the army contract. And have you been thinking about this?
Yeah, I actually did it some years ago, 2020 to 21. So it was 18 weeks in Möckling, which is a sports place in Switzerland, where usually the gymnasts live. But there's every year 2 army like periods where those sports people come there, and all the athletes that got selected for that army thing. And then you spend basically 18 weeks there, and you're able to use all the physiotherapists, the doctors, and all the facilities that is in that sports center up there. So this was a pretty nice opportunity, and I'm glad I took it, because now I can do 130 days in military a year, and each of those days gets paid from the army. And this is basically all the training camps and the training days I'm doing. So I get support for all my training camps from the army.
Yeah, that's nice. In Poland, this is basically the only reasonable way for you to be a professional athlete. You have to have a contract with the army, and then they help a lot with financing your training camps, provided that you go to the Army World Orienteering Championships. I'm not sure what's the right name for it, but yeah, as long as you go there and perform decently well, you can stay on a contract at the army and have a lot of opportunities to grow as an orienteer. But other than that, as you said yourself, if you would have to now connect your training with working, it's really, really hard, right?
Yeah. So the army in Poland also works like you have to go to a place for some time, and after that you get paid, or is it just like the contract with the athlete? And you don't really have to do anything.
So first of all, the number of places for these kind of athletes is limited. So you have to present a level, and there also has to be a room for you to get hired, kind of, right? And then if there is a room and you get selected, because of course there is a coach on the army side as well for the orienteering team, then you have to go through some mandatory training, and it has been different lengths throughout the past years, as far as I remember. So sometimes people were going for just a month, sometimes for 2 months, sometimes for even longer. So it depends on, I don't know, the army regulations, current army regulations. Apparently they have changed a little bit. But then after that initial training period, you basically get a contract, and you are in what's called the army sports team, right? So then your job is to be a professional athlete, and you don't have to do, or at least not a lot of like duties in the army per se, but your job is to focus on getting better as whatever you're doing, because it might be running, it might be discus throw, or it might be high jump, right?
Yeah, so it's about the same, I guess. We also have that mandatory military thing in the beginning for, I think it was 3 weeks. And then it was basically just training. So
So yeah, I think we are in the lucky bunch, because I've been talking with lots of coaches during the competitions, and not everybody gets this opportunity, and I think it helps a lot.
Definitely.
So let's move on. This question came from one of the juniors I'm training, and this is something that we get very often when we are talking to people that are in women 20 or men 20, so the last years of your junior career. What are you going to do next with orienteering? What are your next steps? And the things that I hear most often as a coach is that, I don't know, we will see, right? So when I hear something like that, I kind of know that the person is not driven to be a professional athlete and to continue the orienteering career. I don't blame anyone for it, of course, because I know how hard it is. As I mentioned, basically going to the army is the only reasonable choice. So not everybody will want to do that, and no everybody will be able to do that. But the question is, in your case, how hard was it to make this decision whether you're going to continue your orienteering career after finishing your junior period? I kind of suspect that it wasn't that hard, because you've already mentioned about your dream to get the gold medal during the walk. So I kind of feel like it was like a continuation. You didn't have it then, and you just thought that maybe you have to push forward.
Yeah, I think it was quite a fluid decision. I never really decided now I want to be a pro. It was like I was quite good in my junior years, and then the motivation was really high to achieve the same in the elite sports. So yeah, I don't really know. It was always the sports that I put before the studies already during my junior career, even though I had to go to the university back then to finish the first part of my studies. But yeah, otherwise I would say it was pretty easy for me to choose this path to go.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I want to clarify one thing though. You weren't quite good. You were very good. So my definition of very good junior is someone who moves on to the senior class and is able to compete with the best runners in the senior class. You did that, and that means that you were already on a very high level as a junior. And yeah, I mean, there are other examples like Hadorn, for example, or Oyanaho. You are in a very famous group, so to say, but this is always a good indicator for me about the level of the junior orienteer. Let's move to the senior class and let's see how the person does. And you did it very, very well. Also, I think that the decision to go pro after being a junior is maybe not strictly, but connected with your house, with your parents, and how your life looks like, right? You're lucky that your parents are coming from orienteering world as well, right? And
exactly.
I suspect that they fully support it.
I think that was a big part of it.
They fully understand it, and they fully support the decision. On the other hand, if you have parents that have nothing to do with orienteering, and that happens for many runners as well, it might be hard for them to understand that you're not actually going to learn, study, and get a normal job, but you're actually going to be a professional athlete. Like, where are you going to get the money from, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I get asked from different people, like outside of the sport. So yeah, I can really feel how it must feel to have parents that are not really into the sport.
Yeah. All right. The next one I have is actually a small preparation for the next video we're going to record for this channel. So we're going to record a video about the warm-up procedures and the routines around that, and how to prepare for the race, like not months before, but maybe one day or several hours before the race, or minutes before the race. So what is your warm-up routine? How do you go about your warm-up? And do you do different types of warm-ups for different types of races? I suspect you do.
Yeah, I actually do. Or it depends a bit on when the race is. If it's after lunchtime, after let's say 12, then I'm doing a morning jog in the morning, which is about, for long distance only 10 minutes, for middle distance and sprint a bit longer, maybe 20 minutes or 15 minutes. And then basically the warm-up right before the race also looks a bit differently for every race. The longer the race, the shorter the warm-up. So for long distance, I like to warm up for not that long, maybe 15 minutes only, or 20 minutes. And for sprint, it's almost half an hour. And then it's usually just running and some accelerations and some sprints. And that's basically it.
Do you have like, because I know that some people, for example, write down that at this time I have to do this, at this time I have to do this. You have the list like this as well?
Yeah, for important competitions, the days basically planned from waking up to going to bed or to finishing the race maybe. So definitely have that. At what time I start my warm-up, at what time
Exactly.
take the caffeine shot, at what time I eat the last thing, at what time or the call-up is, and if there's GPS to get before the call-up already, then I have time scheduled as well for that, so that I don't have to think about anything anymore during the competition day.
Is there anything special you do the day before the race or the evening before the race?
No, not really. It's just like, usually it's 2 short runs. Sometimes, or usually there's also a mall event the day before. So the plan is always to get familiar to the map and the mapper, and to get ready with those 2 short runs, not too much, but just to keep the fitness to that level. And
what about the head?
The head is always busy with lots of maps. So I like to look at maps the whole time before competitions. I almost can't keep my head away from looking at maps. So that's basically it. And then the preparations, of course. The evening before, I always write the schedule for the next day. That one with waking up and warming up and everything else. So, the day is pretty busy, even though I don't train that much.
What do you do in the starting boxes, so the last 3 minutes before you go into the race? Do you do anything special over there?
Not a lot. I would say I try to remember my tactic maybe, and I want to do during the race to perform well. But otherwise it's just some jumps to keep the heart rate a bit high, and then focus.
No deep breathing?
Nah, almost never.
Okay. Well, that's what I like to do. I mean, so the first box is like check, clear check. That's like still part of my warm-up. I'm actually cooling down from running and stretching. Then there is the control description. So I always try to look at the control descriptions over there, check if I can see anything out of the ordinary. So for example, during the sprint race, I always check, for example, the corners of fences, whether it's inside or outside. Maybe there is a pattern that I can easily remember, like on the one is outside and it's number 14, for example, right? And I usually also try to remember the numbers, the first 2 at least, sometimes 3. But then when I go to the last box, I always do some deep breaths, because I think that it helps me calm down and set my nerves where they should be. But I also do the visualization, very short one, like really 30 seconds, where I imagine myself going to the maps, taking the map. If you have to go, sometimes you grab the map at the start immediately, right? But basically grabbing the map, opening it, finding the start. That's actually one thing that I also do. I always look around and see where the start might be located. If I have an asphalt road nearby, big field, buildings, right? It helps me look and find the start of the map faster. and then find the start, find the first control, pick the best route choice, and then slowly run through that. And so that's just a very, very short visualization that kind of gets me into the race before I start the race. I really like it.
Yeah, one thing that comes to my mind is maybe I'm always listening to the same song or same film music before the start. Some maybe right before the warm-up starts. And there I try to visualize like how I start and how I orienteer in the forest. So that's basically the most special thing I do. Otherwise, it's quite normal, probably.
Do you do visualization as part of your training at any point in time?
No, I wouldn't say that. Or sometimes when I look at maps, then I, of course, visualize like me running there and how the terrain looks like and what is to my left, what is to my right. But that's not that often.
Okay. Yeah, I'm always curious because I think it might be a very interesting part of the preparation for running, because visualization, when done properly, is actually very powerful. But it's also not everybody knows how to do it, and it's also time consuming. So I think that if you get an opportunity to actually run in the terrain, it's better. If you have less opportunities and you can do the visualization instead, it's a pretty decent replacement, I think. Yeah,
I usually take the map with me for a run, and then I try to visualize where I would run during the run.
Yeah.
So just some normal run on paths or on forest roads. So nothing really technical that I don't have to pay attention to the ground, but only to the map and the course and what it look like there.
Sure. All right. So the next one I have, I'm thinking if we haven't answered this one already, but it's about your goals and your dreams. So I already know that your biggest dream for now is to win the World Championship. Is there anything else that is driving you forward?
Yeah, of course, it's also a World Cup overall, and to like become the best one in the world. That's a really big goal, and I know that it's really hard to achieve it. But I think if I really work hard and believe in my dreams, then anything can happen, and I hope that I'll achieve it sometime.
That's an interesting one. So become the best in the world. How would you define it? How would you measure it?
It's hard to define it. Maybe
yeah, exactly.
The world ranking list. That's maybe one thing that defines it a bit, or World Cup overall, several years in a row. Just really stable races on top of the result list, I think.
Yeah, I think if I was asked to put the definition to this, I would probably say that it's probably flawed in some ways, but the person that wins the world ranking is probably at least one of the very best orienteers in the world in this season, right? Another measure that you could use for it is, for example, take the 2 or 3 most important competition during the year. So of course, world champs, European champs, I don't know if anything else would actually qualify, and then count the gold medals from it, for example, right? Or all the medals. All right.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yes. All right, last one, but very important one. What, in your opinion, is the single most valuable skill of an orienteer?
I personally think it's the ability to adapt to different terrains quite fast. So for example, for EOC this year, there was not that much time for athletes that were running WOC and World Cups and World Games to really prepare in Estonia for EOC. So it was really important to use the time in between the other races to go to Estonia and adapt to the terrain really fast. And I think if you can do it, then you can save a lot of time and be much more efficient on your training and on preparing for all the possible races you're running in the whole summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that this is something you're just born with, or this is something you can train?
I think you can actually train it.
How?
I think it's important to visit different terrain, or as many different terrains as possible. For example, for me, I think it was really important to spend a lot of time in Finland and whole Scandinavia when I was a junior, to kind of get to know the different terrains and get to know how to orienteer in the different terrains. And that's really important to also, as a senior, to go to those terrains that are relevant for the competitions and try to really get into those terrains, like do analysis after every training and get to know the terrain really well, like your home terrain. And then with every time you do that, then it gets better, I think, and you get better in adapting to new terrains.
Yeah.
But of course, a big role plays the junior time, where you should spend as much time as possible in different kinds of terrains.
Yeah, so I totally agree with your answer. I think that it basically comes from experience. So the more experience you have with different types of the terrain, first of all, you will remember that. Second of all, you will be you will need less time to adapt to the same terrain or similar terrain if you come back to it after a while, a year or two, several years even. So if you've seen it before, it's going to be a little bit easier than it is now. And I also totally agree that one of the most difficult parts of orienteering is to adapt to the terrain, because each terrain, even with the same symbol, might actually look a little bit different, right? You can take a simple stupid stone, like just a black dot on the map, and you can go to Scandinavia to one place, for example, and it will be the stone that is at least 1.5 meters high. And then you will go to, where was I? Yeah, Czech Republic this weekend. And suddenly the stone that is marked on the map is 1 meter or even a little bit less sometimes, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You have to adjust yourself very quickly to this and be able to figure out what is what on the map.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's all from my list of questions. Do you have any at the end that you want to ask?
Nothing that comes to my mind. It was
All right.
a really nice talk. Thanks a lot.
All right. So thank you very much for the chat. If you want to share any links to your social media, for example, to your website, then we will put them into the description of this video so that people can reach them easily. But other than that, thank you very much for your time. It's been a blast for me, at least. And hopefully we will have opportunities to talk more in the future, because as I mentioned to you yesterday, we will be trying to build over here a knowledge base for orienteers. And I think it's so important that it doesn't come just from me, even though I have quite a lot of experience, but I think that still something that works for one person will not necessarily work for another person.
Exactly.
And there are different roads to get to the top. So I'm very curious to talk with many different people that represent a high level in orienteering, to get to know their methods and their skills and their solutions to several different things, so that we can all learn from it.
I'm really looking forward to watching all those videos.
Okay.
That'll be interesting.
All right. Awesome. So thanks a lot, Simona. I'm always rooting for you to get the best possible results, to get that world champ medal as soon as possible. And see you next time. Thank you.
See you next time.
What did I tell you? It's been a blast, hasn't it? If you've liked this video, please hit the like down below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, also hit the subscribe button, please. And if you want to let us know what other topics we should talk about with the athletes in the future, what kind of questions you want us to ask them, then let us know in the comments, of course. This channel is mainly for you, so your input is very important for us. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.